Now, a retired US ambassador who's spoken to ISIS bride Shamima Begum has said that she does not pose a danger to the public and should be allowed to return home. Gets me asking, is it time for Britain to take responsibility for our own terrorists and to repatriate Shamima Begum and others and put them on trial here if necessary? There's a few points I'd like to make on this that I think are important to consider when looking at this case and others. First of all, as is known, Shamima Begum was a minor. She was a juvenile, 15 years old, when she went to join ISIS. Now that matters. It matters legally and it matters morally. Because we know that somebody that's under the age of 16 has diminished criminal responsibility. There is still criminal responsibility, but it's diminished, which is why we try them in juvenile courts and we send them, if convicted, to juvenile prisons. And extenuating circumstances for juveniles do exist legally. And that's important because it's important to understand how a juvenile can be groomed online, and I'm not saying that she's entirely innocent of the fact that clearly she went to join the worst terrorist group that we in living memory know of. But it's important to remember she was 15 when she did so, and people change from when they're 15 to when in their mid-20s, for example. And so it does make a difference, her age. The other thing, though, is perhaps even more substantial, and that is up until this ISIS bride's case, we didn't have the habit in this country of stripping citizenships for terrorists. You look at the IRA, attempted to blow up our Prime Minister Thatcher in a hotel. We didn't strip any of their members who had British citizenship because of the behaviour of their other members who may have had Irish citizenship. Why are we doing it with ISIS? And if we are willing to go down this route where we start stripping citizenships from our own terrorists that have gone abroad and committed atrocities, then which sorts of crimes should qualify? Is citizenship a visa? Is it like a visa that can be taken away based upon committing certain crimes? And if so, where do you then dump the people? Is it just terrorism? Because keep in mind, this 15-year-old girl at the time married into ISIS, which is why she was known as an ISIS bride. Imagine her crime was something else. I don't know, you tell me, is paedophilia worse than marrying a terrorist? Should we start stripping citizenships for paedophilia? What about serial killing? Are serial killers worse than women who are 15 at the time who marry terrorists? What's the basis we're going to use for determining which crimes require stripping of citizenship and which don't? Keep in mind, I use these examples because they're all very real examples. We've not stripped IRA terrorists nor any other terrorists that have attacked our country of their citizenship. Even the 7/7 bombers and the 21/7 copycat case and all the now infamous cases of attacks in London, they still have their citizenships. Shamima Begum was born and raised in this country. And that means, by definition, she becomes our problem. Now, there's an issue here, which is, fine, you strip her of her citizenship because you say, well, her parents were from Bangladesh. And she was born here. Bangladesh, as the government, has turned around and said, why should we have to deal with her? Nothing to do with us. She was born and raised on your soil. Why are you trying to dump your terrorists onto us? That's a valid concern that they have. But there's an even more practical issue here, not just one around the moral ambiguity of stripping citizenships and creating a two-tier society whereby some people who commit the very same crime will never have their citizenship revoked, and others, for the very same criminal act, are in jeopardy of being convicted twice, once for the crime and the other through deportation. You could conceivably have a scenario where somebody whose parents have no dual heritage, but rather whose parents only have British passports, commits the very same crime as somebody whose parents have dual heritage but was born and raised in Britain themselves. And the first example gets one punishment, which is the sentence, but the second person gets sentenced and then after their sentence gets deported. That's two punishments. You end up with two-tier citizenship in this country. Now, that's the moral problem there. I'll say, what's the practical concern? The practical concern is we in Britain have reserved the right and have implemented the right to deport foreign terrorists who have arrived here back to their countries of origin. So Omar Bakri Mohammed was basically given the red light when he attempted to get back in. He's in Lebanon. We said, we don't want you back. Abu Hamza, deported. Abu Qatada, deported. These were all head or leading terrorist figureheads. They were in our country. We said, we don't want them anymore. They migrated here and they caused trouble. And we said to their countries of origin, where they were born, you can take them back and try them in your country. Now, if we do that to foreign-born terrorists who have somehow landed in Britain, we send them back to where they were born, to their own countries. Why are we not taking our terrorists back where they were born, which was here, like Shamima Begum, when they travel to other countries? How can we expect countries to take their terrorists back from us if we don't take our terrorists back from them? There's no logical, consistent answer to that. If we refuse Shamima Begum and the other British nationals that are in those camps in Syria, if we refuse them there, there's currently about 15 to 20 British women, therefore ISIS brides, currently living in Roj camp. If we don't take them back, 15 to 20 of them there, with their kids, imagine one day, through these refugee flows and migration flows, ISIS delivers on their promise, as they have done, and said, we're going to smuggle fighters in through your refugee system. And imagine one day we catch one of them and we want to send them back to wherever they've come from, and that country says sorry. Imagine we're going to send them back to Syria and Iraq. And Iraq turns around and says, so we're paying for your nationals here that you don't take back. Why should we take our nationals back from you? It doesn't make any sense, folks. And then this brings me to the very last concern I have as well. And that is, there are children being born in these camps. Shamima Begum's children happened to die. What is the crime of these children? Children that are born to British born and raised citizens that we want to wash our hands of. And whatever you say of Shamima Begum, and I'm making a principled case here, it's not a defence of her personality, it's a defence of precedent being set. I'm concerned we're setting the wrong precedent when we start stripping citizenships. It's a legal and moral concern I have. It's not a concern for her personally. It's a precedent that I'm saying is dangerous to set for the reasons I've just elaborated. But now add another concern. What on earth, whatever you think of her, what on earth was the crime of her children who died in captivity after being born in captivity? Just think about that and link it to the conversation we had yesterday on this show about Priti Patel's suggestion setting up detention camps for refugees and asylum seekers in Rwanda. This all began with Guantanamo Bay. Detention without trial, interning what we were told were some of the most dangerous jihadis on the planet, without charge and without trial in Camp X-Ray in Guantanamo. It began with that, and at the time, we were outraged, we meaning people that are concerned for civil liberties, but it carried on. It's got then to a point where in Syria, you've got these camps where it's not the jihadists anymore we're interning and detaining without charge or trial, it's their wives and children. And as I say, children being born and dying in these camps, committed no crime whatsoever, born to British born and raised mothers, and we're happy to turn a blind eye and let them die in these camps, these babies. And now, with the Home Secretary suggesting one stage further, and that is putting refugees and asylum seekers in camps. Think about it. This is why I talk in terms of precedents. And I'm saying that the precedent we are setting is dangerous because we end up becoming numb to the idea that we can detain people in camps and have children born in these camps, have children die in these camps, and none of our business when they are our citizens that are giving birth to these kids.